Hello and welcome to the webinar. Is there a future for a new law firm? Martin, I'll let you introduce us.
Hi, well, good afternoon, everyone, and yeah, welcome to this webinar from Legal Mentors. We're going to be talking about the future for a new law firm, and we're going to be about an hour. It's CPD webinar. We're very pleased to have you here. So it's Martin Wyatt and Ray Gordon. In our agenda today, we're going to give you an introduction to what we're going to be talking about and an introduction to ourselves. Then we'll have a look at why people want to change at this particular moment from perhaps their existing job and responsibilities in the law firm and maybe to start their own law firm. And then thinking about that, what is involved in setting up a law firm, because very few people have actually done it. Many firms have been there for many years. How about a new law firm? What's involved? And we'll have a look at that. Assuming that you want to start a new law firm in the current environment, how can you succeed? Because as we know, things are changing very fast, more competition is coming in, and we have to work out how not just to start, but actually succeed. What key factors are there to put together a successful organization for the future, one that's going to grow and be profitable? And finally, we'll look at the sort of help that is available for you should you feel the need to move forward into a new firm for yourself. So those are the topics we're going to cover, and by way of introduction, here's a couple of photographs. I've chosen as good a one as we can get, and we are part of the Legal Mentors team, and I'll ask Ray, who's the handsome young man on the left-hand side of the screen, to introduce himself. Ray.
Thank you, Martin. Trust me, I'm a solicitor. I am a practicing solicitor. My background is I was managing partner of one of the largest firms in Surrey. And in the last recession, which actually has a lot of similarities to this recession, possibly not so much for solicitors this time around, but nevertheless for other businesses, I got very interested in strategic planning for small businesses because I'm a corporate lawyer by background, and also I was managing my own practice. Through the 90s, we managed successfully to grow every year, despite the fact that we were in the bottom of a recession. I got much more interested in how I could help other businesses grow, market, and deal with lots of changes which seemed to be beyond their control. So in point of fact, I left my practice in '97 and developed together with a colleague, a chartered accountant, something called the Strategic Planning Toolkit. We started to train accountants to help their businesses to grow, and it was so successful that we managed to sell 75% of it to Baker Tilly, who I'm sure many of you know as one of the top 7 accountants, and had great fun between 2001 and 2006, where we managed to train all of Baker Tilly's offices, all 34 of them, and took these products, they developed by then, to the US of A, to Ireland, and to Europe. Then in 2006, I thought, well, I better have a look at my own strategic plan because I don't seem to know which aircraft I'm getting on next. And so sold my interest in the strategic planning company and excuse me, set up Legal Mentors together with Martin Wyatt. The purpose of this really was to look at all the changes which were coming, because this was 5 years ago, from the Legal Services Act, and to begin to help some of my colleagues to prepare for the changes that ABSs would bring, and indeed generally to help them with a strategic business planning process, which, with Martin's help, we wrote again for solicitors. So that's our background over the last 5 years. So over to you, Martin, for your introduction.
Okay, thanks, Ray. So you were a successful solicitor for many years. I went into the software industry and spent about 20 years with big firms looking at their management reporting requirements. We put in through a company called ComShare, we were putting in software to help them look at their key success factors, their key performance indicators, and pull together data from across the organization to help them manage the business better, which is a very interesting activity. And it gave me an insight into sort of management techniques and also the numbers that you need to manage and control a business, and also the IT aspects of that. So what we got together to do with Legal Mentors is to help legal firms look at the changes in the marketplace and plan for those changes so that they can ride the wave, as it were, as opposed to being enveloped in the water. And one of the key things there is you've got to have a plan, and secondly, not just a plan and then walk away. One of the big strengths of the service that we put together for legal firms was that we will be there month after month, encouraging them and keeping their focus on that plan, because as we all know, it's always tempting to go back and do an hour's law rather than spend an hour look at developing your business or where you are with your strategic plan. So that activity gave us a good deal of experience in terms of what law firms need to do now. As we know, we'll be talking a little bit later in the webinar about how the marketplace is changing. It gives us an insight into what the solicitors firm of the future, or at least of 2012, 13, 14, should look like in order to survive and to prosper.
And we should say, Martin, that it's been, apart from the top 20 firms, we worked with sizable regional practices, 10, 20 million turnover practices, down to sole practitioners, and you know, high street firms that have been merged right across the board. And with our other members of Legal Mentors, we've had experience across the country too of the different problems that solicitors face in different areas of the UK.
So lest we get too worried about all the changes that are coming along, there's always a bright future if you know what to do, how to respond to these changes and create a new way perhaps of delivering services, which is what we'll be talking about today. So the future is bright. We're going to be optimistic during this. There will be some sessions in here where we're talking about some of the problems, but those are just opportunities if we know how to counter them. So the future is bright. So that's a little bit about us and where we are in the marketplace and our experience, and we feel as a team that we've got a huge amount of experience in working with law firms. We really understand a law firm, wouldn't you say, Ray?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the great advantages is we haven't been, or I haven't been doing law over the past 5 years. What I've been doing is to have the benefit of the helicopter view of looking at firms that do want to change and some of the issues that they've had in trying to change, but at the same time being able to monitor the marketplace, particularly with ABS's, outcome-focused regulations, etc., coming into play for firms. And of course, right in the depths from 2008 of a recession, which has been a recession that, more than the 1990s recession, has been very difficult for solicitors.
So since you're listening to this webinar, you must have some interest in the future and perhaps your own future, in your own firm, in a different sort of structure. People are feeling that they need a change right now, and the next few topics are to do with just why people are feeling the need for a change. Why are they looking at their future? And here's some of the more global influences, if you like, because, well, we've already mentioned recession. That's hardly made things easy. It's put pressure on margins and on profits, and with the downturn in conveyancing that we all know about, quite a lot of the bread and butter business of the average high street law firm has been under pressure. And then there's the Legal Services Act coming along to complicate matters as well, which, because of the ABS structure, means that new competitors are coming into the market, and those new competitors are a different brand of people because they're not solicitors by by background necessarily. They are commercial companies, some of them with big brand names like the Co-op, and lots of other firms who are going to come into this marketplace. We're all already seeing a takeover coming along as well.
Yeah, I mean, we start by looking at something that's news, obviously, this week. You've probably all seen it. Slater and Gordon, who are quoted in Australia, have decided to come into the market and have entered into a deal with Russell Jones and Walker. Yes, Russell Jones and Walker are already a very substantial firm. Slater and Walker are bringing in 53.8 million. It's interesting to see that 10.3 million of that is to be used to pay off partners' capital accounts. And we'll come on to see why one of the problems that existing firms have is the structure and the way in which they're put together. But Slater and Gordon, I think, have spotted not only an opportunity in the market, but spotted that their own structure, which is as a quoted company, is well and truly missing from the legal market. I think, Martin, you have a good deal of experience of the Co-op, but one aspect that I just want to mention about the Co-op, I mean, the Co-op have been working as an ABS for the past 4 or 5 years. The reason they've been doing it is because, of course, they've got 5 million members. So to their members, they've been able to sell legal services, anybody who's a Co-op member. And during that period of time, we've been taking a bit of a straw poll from many of the firms that we talked to and have acted for, looked after, consulted to, about how their private client department's holding up, and specifically how many new probates are coming through. And it won't be too much of a surprise to all of you to realize that the Co-op are now the biggest provider of probates or deliverer of probates in the UK, and they're only just getting into the market. Now, as we've said, this isn't about talking to you about the problems in the market, but it is about talking to you about the reality in the market. And the Co-op not only are here to stay, but they are going to be, and are already, a big player in the provision of legal services.
And talking of big players, we've got Rocket Law and LegalZoom, two big American brands that are coming into the UK as well, and others. I mean, who knows what it might be like to have your legal services done by, shall we say, Virgin, or any of the big banks or insurance companies. They may well be looking at getting into this marketplace because they've got existing customers and a very strong brand. But of course, the people who are running these organizations are professional management people, professional IT people, professional marketing people, and so it really does mean that we've got to up our game in order to match them and to provide services which they can't, or services in a different way. So some of these will be, as the last point says, remote. They're going to be call centers or internet-based, and that might suit some people, but there's a wide variety of people who would like to see more sort of face-to-face personal service, which they're not going to get from those sort of organizations. So let's not get depressed about it. We'll show you later how to counter this situation, but it's very interesting to note what clients want isn't so much the let's buy it off the web approach. They're looking for solicitors to be more approachable, more human, more accessible, to be able to talk to them in a more friendly environment maybe, and they're going to look for pricing. One of the big worries that faces people as they go through the door of the solicitors, if they do eventually decide to push open the door and go through, they don't know how much it's going to cost, and there's an issue there. What the clients need is transparent pricing. They need to know how much something is costing them so that they can plan for it without surprises. And then there's availability. I tell a story about a firm in the high street near where I live, where I was walking along about 5 o'clock. The clock bell was chiming 5, and the solicitor's firm, the last person out, was locking the door. Now, you know, there must be a lot of customers out there, clients, who would like to see their lawyer after they finish work. They've got no chance, and there are even lawyers that we know of who close during lunchtime. So, you know, the competition out there is going to be 24/7. So we've got to up our game there. And they're going to need personal service. There's a brand of people who will be content, at least for the first time, to use web-based services, to use call centres, but at the end of the day, people who have more complex issues and want to have a high degree of confidence about the outcome will want personal service to meet and talk to their solicitor face to face.
And it's quite interesting, Martin, we've often heard this. I mean, if people will say, they will tell you that who their solicitor is rather than who the firm is. And if their solicitor is delivering good quality service, whether it's in office hours or by answering an email or a text quickly, then what you will hear from the client is that is what they value. They value their solicitor.
Yeah, great
and that,
way
of course,
to,
will
to build a reputation as well.
Absolutely.
So there's lots of reasons why people are feeling that they might want to go it alone or go out into a different environment to have control over their own activities and their own business. One of the reasons possibly is that the partnership structure is difficult to live with. Management by committee. Ray, you've had lots of partners, and that's you have a phrase to describe that.
Well, I had 15 partners and 150 staff, and we did have a modern system to manage. As managing partner, I had control, as it were, or at least I had authority, but the problem was that, frankly, it's like herding cats. And there's no doubt about it. There was nothing wrong with any of my partners. They were good lawyers, they were good people, and they looked after their clients. But management by committee, which is often the case with a partnership structure, and I'm bound to say an LLP structure as well, doesn't work in the 21st century. And because we've never had direct competition coming into the law, this type of management has survived well beyond its sell-by date. The absolute bottom line here is that the partnership structure and the way in which it works is broken. It's not capable of mending, and all the things that are on this page, probably in front of you, management by committee, poor and slow decision making, which can lead to indifferent client service, are all one way or another linked back to either the partnership structure or the thing that was put in its place, which was a halfway house, LLP. LLP is just more of the same. We're all used to firms operating in what are called silos. The problem with that is that makes it even more difficult to cross-sell. And when you're in this structure, and many of you will be, and you look at the disadvantages, you ask the old Irish question, well, if I was starting, I wouldn't start from here. So given that you have the opportunity, and clearly you must be thinking about it to be on this webinar, to set up a new firm, that new structure, that new firm will give you the ability to move into the 21st century.
Okay, so other things that are forcing people to think carefully about their future. Once upon a time, it was a real accolade to be a partner of a law firm. Nowadays, I don't see many thrusting young lawyers looking to being equity partners. They've got to put money in. Are they going to get a return on that money? Are they even going to get it out when they leave if the firm isn't prospering as it should do? And they lose control of the future because the partnership structure makes it difficult for them to have a say in what's going on amongst all the other people. So these are influences which help people think that there might be a change afoot. And we've also had interaction with one or two people who said, well, look, my department is generating all the profit for this company and the other parts of the organization aren't pulling their weight, and I'm stuck with just working all the hours to generate profits for other people. And that's a situation that's very, it feels unfair, and it's not very happy. So people then say, well, why do I do it for them? Why don't I go and do it for myself? And so they're not really keen to support underperforming colleagues. Why not go and make your own business? So there's some of the ideas about changing. On the positive side, you probably wouldn't be looking at this webinar if you didn't feel that there was a different way of doing things. You know, this is the 21st century. We need modern attitudes and behaviors. You want to feel to be your own boss. You want also to feel in control of your own destiny with your own plans and control of client service. Many people feel that one of the big differentiators will, in the future, in the 2012 going forward market, will be just great client service. Great law, certainly, but client service as well. And if someone is prepared to invest in their future and build a business, then there is a business to be built, and that means an organization which can thrive and prosper, make profits, invest in the future and grow, and doesn't necessarily depend on just one person to do all the work and to do everything, but actually a business is a structure that supports one person managing it and other people doing the work so that it can grow bigger and more profitable as time goes on. And finally,
and if you get your structure right, and we'll come back to this, if you get your structure right for your new business, you can build a valuable asset for sale later. At the moment, everybody knows that there's no actual sale value in a sole practice. You're lucky if you can persuade somebody to take it over and pay your run-on, your PI run-on. But if you get your structure right, and if you build as part of a community, actually you get a valuable asset for later.
Okay, that's great. So if we'll move on now to the next section, and as we go along, as we build up the story, there will be a session where we say, look, there is another way. We'll share that with you at the end. So what do you have to do to set up a law firm? Is it easy or not? Very few people have actually done that, because most of the law firms out there have been there. You know, I know one that's very proud of the fact that it's been in the same high street for 175 years. Well, that's fine, a lot of stability there, but when someone leaves and starts a new law firm, how much work is involved? Well, no disrespect whatever for hard-working lawyers, but actually most of us, you know, we don't have the training in building a company. We have training in the law, but not in building companies. And in fact, we've designed the document called, or the publication called 64 Things You Need to Do to Set Up a New Law Firm, and we will let you have that at the end of this webinar. Now,
and it's fair to say, Martin, that we did that. We put together the 64 things as a result of going through this exercise over the last 2 years. And you're quite right. Why would any solicitor have training to set up a law firm? It's a little bit specialized in any event to every firm, because different firms in different locations do have different issues, but nevertheless it's something you're only likely to do once or twice, possibly only ever once in your professional life. So why wouldn't you look around and find out others who've either done it before, got experience of it, can help you in terms of supply of the things that you need, rather than DIY?
Yes, and if you look at how long it can take, and we're not really talking about the sort of firm that might, sort of person who might want to operate out of their spare bedroom, but a proper firm with some offices, albeit small offices or managed accommodation somewhere, with a proper web presence and with a serious approach to business. You know, that's going to take time to set up. We feel from our research that it's going to take between 60,000 and 100,000 pounds to achieve, and possibly 6 months. Now, the bad news is that during that 6 months you're not doing any fee earning, so it's actually a very expensive exercise if you do it on your own. And people have done that and they've been successful, of course, but there might be a better way, and we'll be sharing that with you towards the end of the webinar. Other things that you've got to contemplate. Now, strategic plan, do you do this just for yourself, or is there some other value in it, Ray?
Well, It's interesting. If you're going to set up any business, it doesn't matter whether it's a firm of solicitors or not, 15 years of experience tells me that you'll set it up better, you'll run it better, and you'll certainly be much more profitable if you have a proper strategic plan, which is also going to be a business plan and must, by reality, have a financial plan. It's got to have a financial model. You've got to predict what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years. Interestingly, we need to compare this against what the requirements are now under the outcome focused regulations, which, as we all know, came in on the 6th of October. You now have an obligation to file your strategic financial business plan with the SRA under my SRA, and you've got to keep it up to date. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and of course the reason why it's in the outcome focused regulations is that risk is often determined by how financially successful your business is, and new firms are going to be businesses. It's not going to be a lifestyle approach to doing this properly. So one of the things that is an absolute fundamental is to have your strategic plan. And certainly, Martin, all our legal mentors would tell you that our experience is have it done with someone who is not going to be part of the business. Have it done by somebody independent. That's what we do, so that you actually are not being unrealistic about the things that go into your plan, but you're still getting what you want. Now, the next thing that you have to do is to form a limited company. I said we'd come back to this because the only type of structure that is going to work in competition with ABSs and to build actual value into your solicitor's practice is a limited company. The structure's right. You can have directors but potentially not shareholders coming to join you. You can, as a shareholder, have a management buyout by others in the company, and you can manage it properly. So form your limited company. The strategic plan comes first, form the limited company second, and then of course you require professional indemnity insurance cover so that you can apply to the SRA for registration. You must have a cover note before you can do that and before they will accept your application. Now, we'll come back to talk about professional indemnity, but again, we've found ourselves, if not becoming experts in this area, certainly learning a great deal more about PI cover because we've had the time to investigate it. Much more time than solicitors have when they're either renewing their PI cover or when you're setting up a new company, you're actually putting that in place. And of course, your financial plan, your financial model, will be there to help you raise finance to start the business. We'll show you how that can work for you as well, because it's very often the case that you will need to raise finance to start this business.
And there's all sorts of ways that you can gain help to do these sort of things. So the help is there, and we'll share that with you towards the end of the webinar. Some other 64 things, I was going to say 64,000, it might feel like that sometimes. There's the practical things about working out what your logo is going to be, where your website's going to be, what it's going to look like, where you're going to have your office, and everything right down to the detail of letterheads and business cards. More difficult will be things like what practice management software are you going to use, and how you're going to integrate the appropriate outcomes focused regulation compliance in your activities, and looking at your risk management. So all these things are issues which take you time and effort if you've never done them before, but there is help at hand if you feel you need to move forward more quickly. And again, this will be the last slide of the 64 things, otherwise we'll spend the whole of the rest of the time talking about it. But look, you've got to have an accountant who understands solicitors' rules accounting. You'll have to have IT hardware. A lot of practical things there to help you launch the company and recruit people and build your business.
I just want to go back for just a moment, Martin, because one thing that I think we should share with all the attendees for the webinar is outcome-focused regulation. Now, if you're an existing firm, the problem that you've got is even if you've got Lexcel and you've updated it, it isn't likely over a period of time that that will contain enough of the things that you need for outcome-focused regulations. How can I say that? Well, I can tell you that we've spent about 9 months putting together a complete compliance manual, which is actually on a PMS management system, so it's in real time. And we didn't do it, we got experts to put it together. If you're putting together something to fit the handbook and to fit the new outcome-focused regulations, you can put your systems and processes in straight away, monitor them, make sure they're working. If you're doing it with an existing firm, it really is like having to re-engineer all that you've got. And that's an exercise that we discovered is going to be very difficult for many firms, and a good many firms haven't really got to terms with this.
Okay, so that's about risk management and compliance and practice management systems, which are all part of this new environment for the 21st century and 2012. And then these other things that are on the screen at the moment. Taking advice about running a company is quite an important thing, because actually, whilst you are providing a law service, when you're running a company, one of the weaknesses of the old partnership structure is that someone who is called the managing partner or the IT partner or the HR partner sort of gets it by default or by getting the short straw, as opposed to being a professional at doing that. Whereas in the modern company, we're going to have people who really know what they're doing, and that takes either having staff to do it or advice about running and managing a company. So there's lots of things. Don't want to get depressed about that, and we'll show another way of handling all these at the end. So you need help, to be frank, if you want to do it quickly and easily and with less cost. So how would you do that? Well, ask people who've done it before. You probably don't manufacture your own phone or your own computer, so why would you want to manufacture your own company? Ask people who've done it before, who've got established suppliers of various services that can swing into action in day one, and there's a possibility there of a sort of out-of-the-box law firm in infrastructure where you just add lawyers, if you see what I mean. So in that case, it saves you setting up a whole string of things from scratch, because they're there already for you to step into, and we'll show you how that can work towards the end of the webinar. And it's all to do with experience. Once you've done this sort of work, then it becomes easier to roll it out to additional firms. So why do it yourself when you can have it cheaper, faster, less hassle? And indeed, the cheaper and faster are involved with the fact that if you have 6 months of non-fee earning time while you're building the firm, well, that's very costly in its own right. It's lost income. Whereas if you bring forward the date when you can actually start offering law, then obviously that's a financial benefit. And finally, why learn something you may only ever need once? Because hopefully when you've built your new law firm, you can find yourself in a position where that will grow and be profitable, and one of these days you'll be able to retire. So having said that there's quite a lot of work to set up a new law firm, that's all very well, but even if you set it up, how can you succeed? Because the current marketplace is increasingly difficult, ABS is, and recession and all that sort of gloom and doom, but actually there is a way where you can succeed in this marketplace. One of the components of that, and I'm sure you're thinking of this already, otherwise you wouldn't be at this webinar, is that you can do customer service, client service better, even to an excellent, a world-class standard, better than possibly the area, the company that you're in at the moment, the organization you're in at the moment, because that is a major differentiator. And it's to do with attitudes. It doesn't necessarily cost you huge amounts of money. So here are another ideas about how to succeed. Lower overheads, fewer support staff. Ray, we know some firms where there's one member of support staff to each fee earner. And the problem with that, obviously, is that you've got too many people who are working with, who are not non-productive, and that means that they're an enormous overhead. So we're going to be looking to IT to reduce the cost of those support functions rather than having huge amounts of support staff.
And you know what you're looking for with regard to your new law firm is excellent back office services. Now, I differentiate between back office services and outsourced services because you want there to be a connection between those who are providing your back office and the delivery of the right type of support that you need. For example, back office legal cashiering. To be able to complete your docket on your computer, send it to an SRA trained back office who will be able to tell you whether you've got any money in client account. If you haven't, no, you can't have the check. Actually takes away from you the necessity to deal with that by either having to employ an accountant, part-time or full-time, who's got to be trained in solicitors' accounts rules work, or alternatively do it yourself, which isn't very profitable when you're trying to earn fees.
Okay, so we're going to cut into those support costs if possible, and we're going to look at excellent marketing. The web obviously is a major activity. You have to have a really good web presence for people to find you, search engine optimization, all that sort of thing. But it also comes down to local marketing, your profile in the local community, and making sure that you're building a reputation. The reputation is the strongest way in which solicitors get referrals.
State-of-the-art IT, what do we mean by that? Well, I'll tell you what we don't mean. We don't mean you having to encounter CapEx, capital expenditure, on spending £20,000 or £30,000 on some IT which is likely to be out of date in 3 to 4 years at the latest. You need actually state-of-the-art plug-in case management system. You need that to be linked to cloud computing. There are a number of cloud computing companies out there who've taken the trouble to make sure that they're properly signed up with the SRA in regard to their disaster recovery, access to files, confidentiality, so that if you are given help in that regard, you will know that you've got the backup that you need. Most people these days do not think that capital expenditure on IT is worth it, so you need to be guided towards something that will work for you. Lower PI. I said we mentioned this in the past. One of the things we've been doing over the past couple of years is talking to leading players in the professional indemnity market. Two of the ones that you will have heard about, Travellers, who have got 11% of the market, who are one of the leading players in startups, and Prime Professions, who are a broker, and again they deal with a lot of startups, sole practices. What might surprise you is that 50% of their applications from startup companies are rejected. Now, the reason they're rejected is not because the people making the application are likely to be bad lawyers. It's simply that when they've looked at their strategic and business plans, they do not believe that they're realistic, and they do not believe that they have thought through the ability to be able to survive the first 2 or 3 years. And of course, the last thing a PI provider wants to do, an insurance company wants to do, is to insure you and then have you give up after 2 or 3 years because it's not working, because otherwise they'll have to deal with the runoff. So this is a particularly relevant aspect of how to put you in a position to be successful in the future.
And we'll show you a way where you can expect to achieve lower PII premiums later in the webinar. Now, we're building a business, and businesses need development. They need people who are managing them efficiently. So business and management development is something which is very scarce in the teaching regime of the lawyer, but it is skills. They are skills which are necessary to build a business and to manage it, and that's an essential component, getting advice about how to manage and build the business in the future. Finally, there's lots of different ways of doing law in different areas, but you as a startup will probably be niche. And what do I mean by that? Well, you'll handle one area of law and do that really expertly, as opposed to the high street lawyers now, which have 5, 10 different departments doing all sorts of different things, and with a very diffuse message as far as marketing is concerned, and allocating resources and profit and so forth. So niche is one way to go, Ray.
Oh, definitely. I think that most startup firms have already decided the areas, their own specialties, the areas in which they will specialize. Niche is something that can be marketed extremely well, and of course being small is beautiful, and you can have advantages against the major players. However, let's be absolutely clear about this. Even niche, you still need a brand presence. You need a brand presence locally, and you need a brand presence nationally. Why do you need that? Well, because there are all sorts of other players who are very, very good at business coming in, and you need to take advantage of a specific brand that will work for you.
Okay, and we'll show you how that can come about later in the webinar. Now, how to succeed now. You know, because you're listening to this webinar, I think you must know that the old attitude and approaches are no longer going to work. They'll be all right for the next few months, for a year or two maybe, but with these new, very commercially minded, financially focused, management focused competitors in the marketplace, we're going to have to find new attitudes and approaches to work. So that's sort of environment we're looking at. It's a sort of personality that we're looking at, and we've got to be much more, as solicitors, we've got to be much more available and approachable. I can take you now into some of the waiting rooms of some of the law firms that I've visited over the years, and it's like stepping back into Dickensian times. Sometimes you've got books up there that are dated from the 16th century, and you've got all out of date publications, Punch magazine on the table and so on. We're in the 21st century now, and things have to be done completely differently. If you're thinking in these sort of terms about new attitudes and a new way of working with your clients and with your team, that equals 20% of the way there already. You're already in the right sort of frame of mind. So finally, in this area, you really need expert help to create a new way of doing things, because you might think that you know that you have to have new attitudes, but what are they? And we'll be talking to you in a moment about how to get help to understand what those new behaviors and attitudes will look like. So finally, how do you get the help you want and need? So it's essential that you take advantage of people who've done this sort of work before, and we've had a lot of experience putting together strategic plans and helping people work for the future of their law firm. And the next step from that is a little while ago, Ray, we came up with the idea of putting together the first national legal franchise.
Yes, Martin, you've heard this from me many times before. I said, as legal mentors, as a group, we've been working with all types of firms, and about 2 years ago, to be perfectly honest, I was tearing my hair out, and I kept really sharing with my colleagues, look, it feels as if whilst we're actually giving firms some help, it's a bit like putting a sticking plaster over a gaping wound. The cost structure of existing firms is broken. It won't work against ABSs. The partnership structures we've heard is broken. How do we get good solicitors into a situation where they can be competitive with the big players and with others out there in the market? And the answer actually came from my wife, who is a barrister, because she's had experience of franchises, and she said, it's a franchise. And so 2 years ago, we began to put together the first legal franchise. In fact, we put together the first legal franchise. It was in March of last year. We were the first one to do it. There are plenty out there who use the word franchise, but they don't actually follow what is consistently accepted as a franchise. And as you've just seen on the screen, what does it bring? It will bring consistency because we're putting in place all of the back office that you need. It will bring brand, because you do need brand, and you need that nationally and locally. We can certainly build in, and are already doing so, lower costs. There will be a community of franchisees who will support one another, because it's actually in everyone's interest to deliver the best value for their clients. We as franchisors can give you support and value, because it's just as important to us as it is to you for us to be successful.
So a franchise, what is a franchise? Well, possibly one we could explain is the Mercedes dealer. That's a franchise. And if you can think of the analogy, there might be lots of little car workshops up and down the country with different standards and different ways of doing things, some with big hammers to do the repairs, others with more finesse, different charging structures, different attitudes, different customer service, no real consistency there. If they became Mercedes dealers, they would all have the same standards. They'd all the mechanics would be put through the same training courses. They'd all have top-class tools. They'd all have the same tools. They'd have the same methods for doing things, and they'd have high quality throughout. Customer service levels would be consistent, and because there's an infrastructure there to keep consistency and quality going, then there's lots of benefits for the owners of those organizations, i.e. the franchisees, and there's lots of benefits for the customers and for the staff. I remember hearing the head of Subway, the sandwich franchise, surprisingly it's the biggest one in the world now by outlets, not in terms of turnover but outlets, and the head of that was saying, when our franchisees wanted to open a sandwich shop on their own, the banks were hardly likely to lend them some money to start. But if they wanted to start a Subway franchise, and he did say that the average cost in the UK for a Subway franchise to set it up was about £150,000, well, when the franchisee went to the bank for that money, the bank said, oh, that's okay, that's not a problem. We know because you're a franchise, we know there'll be standards, there'll be training, and you're likely to be profitable because the business has been refined and is consistent. So the idea of a franchise for law firms might sound a little unusual, but actually when you think of it, it's a professional service that can have consistent approach and infrastructure and all the things we've got here. One of the other lovely values here is community, as Ray said, so that people can work together. At the moment, most solicitors think every other solicitor is their enemy, whereas when you have a community of people who are all working together in the same franchise, they have the same standards, they know that if they refer some work out to one of their colleagues, that it will be done properly and with great client service. So the name, Ray, is?
Face-to-face solicitors. Now, you've probably heard of us in the marketplace. The bottom line with regard to face-to-face is that most people, when they talk about solicitors, do talk about the benefit of face-to-face. I recently was delivering a seminar at Legal Futures, and I counted during the day the number of times that people used the phrase face-to-face. So we reckon that's a very good brand. It's also, you will notice, the Solicitors brand. That's a great brand, and this, both nationally and locally, can really help you. So let's just look at the values that that attribute to face-to-face. Most people will say, look, I want to talk to my solicitor. It's something quite serious. I don't really want to go on the internet. I don't really want to go to someone who is faceless, frankly. I actually want to sit across the desk, look him in the eyes, and get some decent advice. So that will work for you. Now, next thing we've got is this approach right for you?
So the sort of people that we're looking at are obviously going to be entrepreneurial, right? Because they're going to start a business.
Well, the people that are here looking at this webinar today and listening to us recognize, of course, that the market is changing. What we didn't talk about earlier is when the tipping point comes. Well, of course, nobody really knows, but somewhere in the next 18 months, 2 years, there will be a tipping point, and that will be the opportunity for those who are already in the market with efficient back office systems who are able to give value to really do extremely well. And we believe we're in the right place at the right time.
Now, there are ways of doing branding and marketing which are valuable, but we feel that our approach as a franchise goes deeper into the organization than that, because it's not just about IT and practice management and compliance, but it's also about attitudes and behavior and the way that the organization behaves both internally and to the client. So, for example, we're not too keen on fee earners, at least not the title fee earner, because we think there should be bigger respect for people in the term. I'm in the team. I personally wouldn't like to be called a fee earner. It sounds a bit demeaning. So one of the obvious things that we're going to be doing in our training for this, as you would expect, all franchisees have a training regime to go through to establish the values of the organization and the ethos. One of them is, well, we'll be having legal advisors rather than fee earners. I know it's the same job, but it just sounds different, and it's about respecting people and behaving in a different way, and that's just inside the team, because one of the key things is, yes, we want client service to be really good, but there's in many traditional firms there's this big gap between partners and the rest, the staff. And that really doesn't, and there's usually a communications gap between those two. One of the things in a franchise that we'll be championing is, look, we're a team, we're all in this together. Everyone can help with marketing, with cross-selling, with promoting the firm, and being really prepared to go beyond the minimum to help their clients and give them great customer service. So it's about values as well as the IT and the procedures and compliance and so on. So it's really a different way of behaving. So if this rings a bell, then this is the sort of thing we're looking for, Ray.
Okay, take us on to the next slide, Martin.
Okay, so this might be the right approach for you. So these are the things that we talked about in the advertisement in the Gazette.
And I just want to deal with a few of these so that you know where we're coming from. First of all, we've spent the last 2 years putting this together. That actually means that if you're interested in coming and talking to us, then we've done an awful lot of the work for you. If you're not interested in joining us, we're still very happy to talk to you. The whole point about this is you're probably thinking about setting up your own law firm, so why not come and talk to us anyway? Probably some of the things that we've done might help you, and that's something that we're very happy to do. We're happy to share our experiences. The strategic and business plan that we have written is specifically for you, and it'll be used for many different things. First of all, there's access to startup finance, which I think is the next bullet point, Martin, isn't it? Startup finance, we've already found in talking to Graham Jones, who heads up RBS, who are the biggest franchise lenders, that franchise businesses are actually much more successful, and that's why banks are keen to lend to them. And it's already proved the point that we've been able to provide finance through putting together our strategic and business plans for our franchisees. Now, not only that, we move on to preferential rate for PI cover. We've already mentioned this. We've spent a long time talking to the people who really know how this works in the insurance market. And they've told us that with a decent strategic and business plan, and they really like what we put together, they can actually reduce the rates for PI cover because it reduces their risk. Therefore, to do that and to do it in an organized way suits. IT, we talked about IT in the past, IT compliance and outcome-focused regulations built in. We didn't know it was going to take us 9 months to put this together, but that's how long it took, and it cost a great deal of money. That's now available to anybody that comes to join us in face-to-face solicitors. And by the way, that's built into practice management. So you don't have to worry about being able to demonstrate to the SRA that you've actually got this in place. Branding and marketing, Martin, that's very much your area.
Clearly we've got to have a strong brand that is recognizable to everyone, that's visible and is well known and builds a terrific reputation. That has two aspects. One is a national brand, which is fine, and that will be establishing, but much of the marketing activity will be on a local basis because as face-to-face lawyers, the people who are going to be offering the service and delivering it are going to be local, and they're going to have local clients, people who can meet them face-to-face. So the marketing mix is very important between national advertising and branding and website and local marketing and activities. And we've got loads of ideas about how to help our franchisees to launch their business, to run seminars, to be available for local activities and make sure that they get out in the marketplace and get known with a great reputation. And then finally, we don't just leave you alone. It's not just a startup, it's a continual business mentoring and support activity month after month to make sure that you get to your goals and you're successful. And then eventually the franchise has more value than an individual firm. And so there will be other franchisees who may want to buy if you want to leave, retire to the Bahamas or wherever, or there will be other people who will want to come in to buy the practice at the end when you're ready to go. So when you've achieved your dreams, we could say. So what do you do with in next steps? Well, firstly, we've put in confidence here because we realise you may be wanting to talk to us without your existing employers knowing. One thing to be done is, if you look at our website, www.face-to-face-solicitors.net/call me. Don't worry if you don't get that. We'll be sending you an email in a few minutes which has that link in it. Go on to that, and then you can choose a time and a date for a chat. We want a personal chat with you to see what you're doing, what your plans are, and how we can help you achieve those and the benefits of our particular service.
And you know, I've said, I just want to add, it is the case that if you've decided, yes, you do want to set up on your own and you don't want to come and join us at face-to-face, come on, you know, chat to us anyway. We'll ring you up. Let's have a chat. We might be able to help you. This isn't all about us. This is about you. We're actually interested in you being successful in setting up your own firm, whether you come to join us or not.
And then the next step would be a 2-day planning and assessment workshop where we get to know each other and work together, and we help you create a strategic plan and a financial model in order to go to the SRA and to the banks. And that'll help you build your new business. So here's a special offer, Ray.
Yeah, I mean, come to us for your 2-day strategic planning session, because what you'll get at the end of that is a plan that will help you set up your business. Now, you may not be right for us for a number of reasons. We may not be right for you. The 2-day session costs you £2,000, and I guarantee you'll be happy with the outcome because you'll have a plan that you can take to any bank, that you can take to the SRA, and that you'll know where you're going. When you know where you're going, you're likely to get there. And as we said, The first 10 applicants will have this refunded from their joining fee if you sign up as franchisees within 3 months. And bear in mind, we're in this with you for the long term. As franchisors, we are entirely dependent upon your success. So it's not a question that you sign up and we say, thanks very much, we've got your money. Not far from it. We've actually got a very much a vested interest in making sure that you are successful. We want best-of-breed services. We'll ensure that you get reduced costs of services. Referrals, well, it's so easy to refer from a network, and we're now in the growth stage of creating the national brand. We've spent the best part of 2 years getting this right. Now we want you to get the benefit from it. And finally, how about creating some value on exit? You might be going into this now not thinking that you're going to retire in 10 or 15 years, but if you're going to retire in 5 years, it's a great way to give you an exit because there's a community for you.
Okay, well, our time is gone. Thank you very much for taking part, for listening. I hope you found it useful. You may have posed some questions. We'll be replying to those on email, and you'll get an email in a few minutes with the details that we've given you for that Call Me. So next step is go onto the website, fill in when you'd like us to call you, and we'll give you a buzz and have a chat to get to know you. So there you are. Thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.